The south side of Quidi Vidi looked very different 200 years ago. It was mainly farmland, a good hike from town. That is until the 1850s, when two structures were built, some of the oldest stone buildings still standing in St. John's. The military hospital was built in 1851 by the same workers who constructed the Anglican Cathedral, the Roman Catholic Basilica, and the Colonial Building. When the British garrison was withdrawn some 20 years later, the hospital was given to the Newfoundland government, but for men only. The Victoria Wing, named in honor of Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee, was built later as a women's hospital. The buildings had a number of names over the years: the Forest Road or Quidi Vidi Hospital, the General Hospital, and today the Dr. A. Leonard Miller Center, named after an influential doctor and politician. It's used for rehabilitation and continuing care these days. Across the street, another stone building, almost as old, Her Majesty's Penitentiary. Opened in 1859, it still houses close to 200 inmates, making it the oldest operating jail in Canada.
My name is Dave Harvey. I'm a retired captain from Her Majesty's Penitentiary. After the Great Fire of 1846, the prison was on Duckworth Street, about where the present-day courthouse is. But after the fire, they moved up to Signal Hill in the old army barracks up there.
It was designed as a smaller version of the Pentonville prison in London, whose inmates have included Oscar Wilde, musician Boy George, and football player George Best. HMP was built outside city limits because no one wants a prison in their backyard.
This was kind of in the boonies. It was pretty rural living here.
Construction of the prison started in 1852, but because of financial constraints, the project was halted.
There was a lot of materials already purchased, and there was a lot of stone shipped over from Ireland to build the prison. So it's what they did. They auctioned off a lot of the materials that they had here, and it was the R.C. Episcopal Corporation bought up all the materials, and they built the present-day St. Bon's College. So if you ever drive by on Bonaventure Avenue, you can look in and say that was the stone originally meant for the prison here.
Gradually, other people started moving into the area, which came to be known as Hoylestown.
It was a working class neighborhood, and these people in the Hoylestown area, then they were typically working downtown St. John's. They were or working out of Quidi Vidi. They were the laborers, the working classes. And then on Forest Road, that was for the merchant classes, the upper classes. And they were settling in there and really taking a foothold in about the 1890s.
It was around that time that there was some excitement at the prison, an escape.
Michael Whalen actually went to prison because he murdered someone. He was in jail for 4 years, but he was a very good prisoner. And so Michael Whalen one day is invited out with the rest of the work detail, and they're working over by the old General Hospital on Forest Road. And they're digging away at a trench, and he excuses himself because he has some private business to do. And so he walks away from the guards and the work crew behind a tree, and he looks back and sees, oh, an occasion. So he starts to run. And what was really interesting, he ran around the lakeside with the security guards or the prison guards chasing him. But he's fast, and he escapes right up into the White Hills, which is pretty ironic now, because if you run into the White Hills now, where you're running towards the RCMP headquarters.
Whalen was the penitentiary's only successful escapee. He was rumored to have made it all the way to Boston. Over the years, other inmates have tried, but all were caught.
It was back in the mid-40s. They used to have work details, and at the time they would have the inmates down on the back of the prison on the lakeside digging holes. And it was around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was around quitting time. But one of the officers noticed that one of the prisoners was, for the past hour, was kind of keeping an eye on him. This prisoner, this individual, took his wheelbarrow outside the gate, dumped his rock, and ran. Now at that time, the boathouse was just below the prison gate. And from what I understand, the boathouse was just built on stilts. So anyway, the prisoner ran, and he ran in underneath the boathouse. And he had the officer that was giving chase. But at the same time, there was an American serviceman saw what happened, and he came down and he jumped up on top of the boathouse, and he called out to the prison guard at the time, and he said, "Throw me your gun." He said, "I'll get him when he comes out."
But the guard knew the prisoner wasn't violent, so they waited, and eventually he did come out.
And they asked him, why did you run? He said, I wanted to come out for a package of cigarettes, he said. That was his excuse for an escape, right?
A more recent escape attempt happened in the 1970s when some of the inmates were part of a rowing crew out on the lake.
They rowed for a spin one day, and they got to the bottom of the pond where they were going to make their turn, and one of the fellas jumped out of the boat, took off. Now apparently he wasn't gone for too long, so it was good while it lasted. I mean, it was great. The prisoners used to look forward to going out for their spin, getting outside, so they had to stop all that. One guy shagged it all up.